of Just Joshing, and this early morning edition for my guest, Thanos Kyratzis, based out of Greece, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct. It's not that early, but it's still
Yeah,
early.
it's early. Yes. Yeah, well, it's an early morning edition. Normally, I do these like in evenings, like evenings
Mm.
my time, but obviously with the international difference here, we're talking. So, how you doing this fine Sunday morning?
I'm doing very well. I'm just a little bit tired. Had to work late in the studio last night, so I didn't get that much sleep. But we're here, and we'll get to meet each other and have a wonderful conversation.
That's the hope, man. That's what we do. That's what we do. So, if you don't mind, if you don't mind my asking, what is your day job?
So my day job is a communications manager and copywriter for a human resources company based in Athens, Greece. But I'm working remote currently.
So just late night burning. So that's been a hard balance sometimes because I mean, copywriting is can be a lot of fun. I speak from my own experience, but it is a very creative endeavor. So between that and the comics, it's a lot of the same energy, even though the story goals are different.
Oh yeah. So the thing is that well, the goal is to try and make a living as much as possible from comics. But until then, I've decided that I want to have something related to writing, so I don't lose the touch. That's why I instantly
Oh, yeah.
thought copywriting.
No, I don't blame you. I do I do some copywriting as well, although not for a company or freelance. But I mean, it's definitely has its it keeps you sharp in a good way.
Mm, yeah.
All right. So that all said, I gotta ask. So comics. So which comics? So why comics? If you don't mind my asking.
Well, that's a very great question. The thing is, I've been reading comics since I was a child, but I need to give a little bit of context. Sorry, context here to for our listeners. So I am the primary writer behind Loudmouse Crew, which is a comic creating studio, comics manga esque. Someone would say, and I started doing this because a friend from primary school asked me, okay, so I want to do comics. I have a basic concept of art because around then we were teenagers, but I have a major problem with writing captions, dialogue, and all that. And I had no problem doing that. I used to write short stories and everything since primary school. So we worked together, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it out for a couple of months, and I think 3 years later I'm still here.
So basically, this was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. What can happen? Then next thing you know, you're like, I'm doing this is my life. I'm playing with dialogue. I'm directing an artist to do stuff for me now. What the heck happened in like the best possible way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's like this, and there was another major moment is when I finished my first degree. It was in English language literature. I did it in Athens, but then I spent a year abroad, and I wanted to do a master's. So I applied for a university in Scotland, and I had two options. I had the creative writing options, and I had the comics and graphic novel option. And I called my best friend. I'm like, because I was in a dilemma. I had no idea where I should go, and she tells me, "Well, you've been writing for since I know you, since before I know you. So why not try something new?" So I went with the comics direction, and this basically locked the whole thing together. I say, okay, this is who I am now. This is my life now.
Okay, no, that's cool. Like interesting. Like you sound like you're a man not afraid to really explore your comfort zone a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Like, but the thing is that I do feel a little bit guilty because I could never draw. I have a basic understanding of the lines make shapes, and shapes make panels, and everything in it. But I cannot draw. I can only write. So I do feel a little bit guilty that I usually don't do as much as the work as the artist.
I understand that feeling very much, actually.
Mm.
When I do comics too, right? I've actually been teaching myself how to draw on the air. I've been drawing with comic book artists. They're way better than I am. Like
Mm.
it's not even close. But it's not about how good you draw. It's about how well you can tell a story. It's something. It's like something I realized. It's even true with words too. Um, like the real secret isn't the words you put down. It's the word. Like okay, my opinion. This is maybe I don't know if you agree with this or not. Dr. Seuss is one of the three great graphic novelists on the planet. That's my opinion.
I, when you say graphic novel, can you give me an example of a graphic novel by Dr. Seuss?
Wait,
Yep.
Green Eggs and Ham, The Cat in the Hat,
Okay, yeah,
Fox
yeah, in
and
that
Flash.
sense, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, it's not like what you think of when you think of a traditional comic book, mind you.
Yeah.
But if you think about it from a point of view of words and pictures, that's what he does, right? And like especially certain ones like Fox and Socks, for example, you could do like if you wanted to, you could put like caption bubbles, like dialogue bubbles to each of the characters when they speak, and it works. It actually legitimately works, and you don't need it obviously in Seuss because the way his style kind of went and how he did things, but the point is like he never used an overly loquacious or complex word choices. But he was able to tell amazing stories with very few words. I think that's an incredible skill, especially this as a copywriter. That's a useful skill there too.
Yeah.
And all of which to say that like I think there is something I will say about writers in comics, and that's this. You've been writing for how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
27.
You're 27. Okay, so
Yeah.
you've been writing then since like your early teens, if not or not earlier than that. So
Yeah,
you've been writing honestly for about we'll give it an even number. We'll say 15 years, maybe just slightly less, slightly more. We'll say 15 years. That is a lot of practice in mastering your craft. Even though at this point there are some things that come easier to you because of the practice you've put into it, right? You've put in a lot of time, man. I'm just saying it like that. Just so maybe when you look at the fact that the artist is doing a lot of the heavy lift, quote unquote heavy lifting, when you're doing this, do keep in mind it took you 15 years to get to this point. So depending on how you look at it, you don't do very much or you've done a ton. It's really it's a perspective thing.
It's yeah. No, it's because the thing is that so like you said, because like this script and the story development come in the primary stages of the comic production. So and that's the thing that it's like sometimes it's just like it all clicks together and you're like, okay, so this is how it laid out. Because I, I was in a slump for like a month or two, and then yesterday just all clicked, and I have cranked out first draft of 40 pages. That's the first draft, of course. It will need major reworks, but uh but that's the thing, like sometimes it clicks, and then you're done for the majority of the work needed for a comic. You're done for like you can give it to the artist after the editing and be like, okay, so I'm done, and I will be there for the process, but for the next, let's say, 3 to 5 months, maybe 6, 8 months, this is up to you how you deliver it. So it's there's a difference in time management, and it's been some time. It's been a long time. Usually after I deliver a script, to the time I see, okay, so this is how words transform to image, and you're like, wow, this took a long time, and
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
No. It's a lot like especially like from the art standpoint, comics have evolved quite a bit in the last 20 years. Just in detail that's put into things. Like coloring especially
Yeah.
has evolved, but even penciling and inking. One of my favorite artists in comics right now is Liam Sharp. He's based out of England, and I'm loving Starhenge by him. And one of the things I picked up from him was like his art style has evolved to something like it's like you read Starhenge and you compare it to his Wonder Woman stuff with Greg Rucka, and you compare it to some of his earlier stuff. The complexity that he puts the images together is just unreal. Like just what he does, and that didn't happen overnight. That happened through a process, and as a writer, like although again we might develop a story inside like a script, an anonymous script doesn't take for me very long to do. I write novels and other things as well, and that does take much longer, but they don't seem as long. But then again, going back to something I said, I just remember the amount of training, time, effort, and work I've put into it to get to this point, and I don't forget that either. And I don't take for granted what a penciler, an inker, a colorist, or even a letterer. If you want to talk about maybe a most underappreciated job in comics, it might be the letterer, because they make the communication sing, and good lettering, although very rarely gets noticed, is essential to a great book.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had this this discussion many a time because so I don't know if you've checked our work in the past week that we talked.
I've been doing client work like crazy. I've been doing commercial work for the last like 2 weeks, so I've been busy as hell. But I've glanced at it very briefly.
Okay, so as you must have realized, there is a style to what we do. There is a certain, okay, so this is how we do it. This is how we will. This is a drawing style that we will communicate out the story. And there was it was a process to find the font and to create the font we would be using for the comics to be like. This is our font. This is the voice of the of Dreamlands. Dreamlands is the title of the series. This is how the characters will be communicating. And the same goes like, of course, for designing caption boxes, for designing speech bubbles. There's just so much work in detail, like minuscule levels of it, that you have to go through in order to give a much more rounded experience.
Yeah, it's like one of the bare bones of a comic. Like it's just one of those bare bone things, and you don't think about it when from the outside looking in when you're reading it. And honestly, as a reader, you probably don't need to think about it. But as a creative, like as a creative person, the everything in a story that you have control over, right? Right, you can create some very interesting tones, narratives. I'm assuming you're a big Alan Moore fan, just based on the fact that of how he's constructed comics in the past.
So I think I am, but from what I've heard, that he gets really into detail and he wants the comics done in a very specific way.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that much because from what I've no, so he is a little he's my 2 cents of experience. It's like this because people work with you, and usually in the levels that we are, you cannot afford to pay them. There is a certain understanding, okay? Because I'm not a comic producer, I'm a comic writer. So I do not hire people, and I cannot compensate them on their time. But it's like, okay, so this is the script. This is the script of a let's say inexperienced writer in the sense of comics. He is how you do it. You don't have to do it exactly because you're the artist. You have a much better understanding of how it all panels out on the page, how it plays out. So I do put in a lot of details, but I'm not exactly upset that someone might change something.
Oh, so okay. So you've never read an Alan Moore script? Have you ever actually tried to read one?
Mm.
They're dense. Like they are
Mm.
incredibly dense.
Yeah.
Grant Morrison actually sometimes does them that way too. Like sometimes he goes into that detail, sometimes he doesn't. Depends on who he works with. Right? They know his like tendencies. They tend to. He doesn't write quite as dense, but no, they're deep, detailed scripts. What I meant though was, okay, say take Watchmen for example, right?
Mm.
Which is everybody looks at as one of the big pinnacles in the industry. It wasn't just the comic; it was the comic in the comic. It was all the
Yeah.
extra, like
Mm.
there was so much. And by the way, a lot, and I should give a lot of credit to also Dave Gibbons, because Dave Gibbons
Yeah.
put that book together, and he made that sing just as much as Moore did.
Mm.
And Moore gets a lot of credit, but Dave Gibbons deserves his fair share. I say that like that because one of the things about that script, though, but that story was all the little layers to give details about each character, each
No.
the world view. Like it's an incredibly dense read. Even though it doesn't, you don't have to read it in that kind of detail. It can be incredibly dense if you are willing to give it that kind of read. And that's a testament to what can be done with a comic book. Now, I'm not saying that when you do work with, the thing about a lot of artists today, they are very creative people themselves. And if you give them room to be creative, they usually will come up with something better than you can imagine. Right. So in terms of like this, I would not write that kind of script either. But the idea of, okay, let's play with the details of the story a little bit. Let's talk about, well, let's say I do a story within a story or a video game or within the story. What can I do with that to make that reflect where the hero's at in the journey? You know what I mean? You can do
Yeah,
little subtle
like a
muscles.
like a piece of the block. Yeah. It's like you said, it takes very specific. Like it is great to create layers. It is great to have several layers in the narration, so you can always go back in after the first read and see that, okay, yeah, like because after you read it, like this, after you read Watchmen, you go back to rereading and you realize this, then it hits you like all the nuance little details that there are. So you do it is it's just so satisfying because I remember this. I remember the same thing like with Django Unchained, because like the first time I was really hyped about it, and the second time I started listening to music and I started getting a grasp of this homage to all spaghetti westerns, and then it just clicks, and then you're like, okay, now I see it, yeah, and it just is the little tricky details that make it just such a fulfilling experience.
Yeah, no, like that's what good storytelling does. Like there's all,
Mm.
like obviously you've done this when you teach you in English literature. It's the story that's presented and sold is about 10% of the story. A really good story has the layers kind of built on the inside. Comics have a unique thing because it has pictures. You can do all kinds of little things in there and not and let the reader make some interesting decisions without them necessarily realizing that. One of my favorite comics, it's not a well-known one, it's called Five Weapons by Jimmy Robinson. Right, he would have these little mysteries built in the stories, and he gets to the cliffhanger at the end. It's like, well, what's going on and what happens? And then at the start of the next issue, he explains everything that happens. What I really loved about that was he didn't lie to you. He put all those little details in the book. You just, and if you could work it out on your own, it's like a bonus to the reader. If you're paying
Mm.
enough attention, you can solve the case yourself. But if not, you get some really clever reveals and some cool character moments right at the start of the next issue before it goes to the next mystery, which I always thought was a really smart way to tell the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm just checking it out. Looks interesting. Five weapons, okay.
Jimmy Robinson, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen, is the Yeah. I just gotta straight up tell you, Donos, I am a comic nerd. I love the medium very, very much. So I'm actually working
Awesome.
on my first graphic novel myself.
Awesome. It's just after the um. So it's just and I think if you start at a young age, like most readers do, it's just like so satisfying to see the emotions, to see the colors, to see everything come together. It's just like it's not it clicks inside you, man, and you're hooked. It's like I never thought I would be writing comics, but I always would be reading them.
Yeah. So
Mm.
what did you like to read as a kid? I mean, like you said, you read comics as a kid. What were your favorites?
Okay, so I'm from Europe, so obviously Franco-Belgian comics. So that's Asterix, that's Lucky Luke, that's Disney coming from Italy. That's a whole different chapter of European comics, and there were a lot of graphic novels in the from a local comic shop. So one of my favorite ones that's really underground. It's called. It's by the creators of Asterix. And it's called Jean Pistol. It's about a French. It's a satire.
Hello?
Uh,
I lost you for just a second, buddy.
so yeah, so like I was saying, so it's basically like imagine really well drawn galleon ships and pirates having fight, but it's also in like so much uh, funny satirical way that you cannot help but enjoy. So there was not that much violence in that sense that there were like realistic sword fights and stuff, but it was just like so vivid. It jumped out of the page. Then so what's really common in Greece is that usually newspapers would give a certain part of the comic every Sunday. They would buy the rights and they would publish it every Sunday, so they would boost their sales and reach out to young adults and children. So I got found out like some really amazing French comics.
Oh, France is some of the most amazing work on the planet. Like like everybody knows the classic Tintin, but they have a very big, thriving comics community there, and
Mm,
probably some of the most. It's interesting because I do like seeing some stuff from France. I'm a big manga fan. I like the Japanese manga style because
mm,
that's a different kind of storytelling as well. And then I like traditional North American comics. Although here the best stuff is on Kickstarter, which is what you're doing, ironically
yeah.
enough, right? Some of the best stuff because it feels like the comic industry is in a renaissance, but in a different way than ever before. Before, it used to be, at least in North America, you'd have to tell me about Europe, but in North America, the comic companies are kind of, I wouldn't say stalled out, but they're definitely in a shrinking market. And if I want to find the best stuff, I go on Kickstarter and I go and I
Mm,
can go find like I have a comics column on firstcomics.com or comicsnews.com, and I've been reviewing primarily a lot of Kickstarter. Sometimes I get like cool throwbacks to older times, like a last book I reviewed. Sometimes I get this really innovative concept that I will never see in a comic shop or with a publisher. And it's all on Kickstarter. And I think it's an amazing time to be a comic fan, although I don't know if the comic shop's the place you want to be, oddly enough.
well, it's like you said, I never thought I never would have imagined using the word renaissance, but it's certainly like decentralized growth because suddenly you get as an independent creator and like a small times creator, you get the chance to put your work out there and not have to fund everything yourself. And basically you get a chance to like, okay, so whatever I want to do, I want to make an original comic, original graphic novel, manga, whatever, and I have a very specific idea about it. So all of a sudden, I retain creative control. I retain the rights, and I get a chance to how to build my own audience. And this is what you do. This and it's not just like you said. It isn't matter of just companies. It's also location because, like you said, I'm from Greece. I've been living abroad for like 4 years, and all of a sudden there is an opportunity for me to communicate and to connect with a broader audience through Kickstarter.
Yeah, and even like in one way that's going on right now, we are
Mm.
2,500 miles away from each other or something like that, or a
Mm.
few thousand kilometers at least, and we're having this conversation about funny books online
Mm.
in the wee hours of my morning and early morning for you, and that's part of what makes this potential possible. Like it's possible in a few years I'll see your name on some of the bigger books in the industry. It's entirely a
Yes.
possibility, right? It could be, or could be you develop your own following, right? And next thing you know, you're just this giant ass rock star that no one that came out of nowhere, right? And you're smiling because
Yeah.
I'm a little silly, but you never know. The cool thing about a creative life, of being a creative, is this: you have a lot of good ideas. You never know when the right one hits at the right time.
Oh yeah. It's just because it's like this. You cannot. So it's a kind of um like I said, you have to keep going back to the page. You have to keep writing. You have to keep developing because it takes it takes resilience. It takes stamina. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but that's the thing. Like on my first attempt to create a comic, I actually got lucky and I had a good idea, and it received an award. Yeah, thank you. It was the John Byrne Awards. It was it's I think the largest arts awards in Scotland, and the disappointing thing is because I was right out of my master's course, so I had no quote unquote real life experience on how to market anything, and I was just like, okay, so now I have an award. Now I'm ready. Now I will be recognized. And the sad thing is that no one really cared that I had an award. It was like, okay, so great, you have an award, but still you have to make people interested in your book. So I think that was a great slapping experience, if I may say, that you have to like do the work. You have it's never easy. It's never easy, and you have to keep going back at it day after day after day.
So I had this podcast won an award a long time ago, like a long time ago, right? The Aurora Award, which is for Canadian science fiction and fantasy. That's where this podcast kind of started. It's I interview everybody now.
Mm.
That either makes me kind of a little bit like a whore, or just the show's grown, whatever you might say. I'm just taking myself not too seriously. But one of the things I've learned about success and what that actually looks like, it's almost like it's a byproduct of your work. It's not if you write for the rewards, you write for the money, you write for all these things, you probably aren't going to get them. It's when it's in the process. I'm not saying you can't make money doing it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's almost like you gotta kind of have like a Zen concept with the work. Like you have to
Mm.
have like a Zen concept. I'm going to go every day. I'm going to come in. I'm going to do the little pieces I do each and every day. And the next day I keep doing more and more. Progress isn't, and I've realized this I'm slightly older than you. I'm 41 years old. So slightly more mature, fingers crossed. But the important thing I learned was that it's not it's really about showing up and doing the work at the end of the day. Now, don't always accomplish the same thing every day, but the fact that you're putting the effort in each and every day, what tends to happen is over a period of time, opportunities happen. There's growth. There's success come find you. It may not in ways you imagine, but it finds
Mm.
you. And suddenly you wake up and you're just doing what you've always done. And now you got maybe a book deal, or maybe you're working for a client you never thought you'd work for, or maybe, right, whatever that looks like for you, right? It may not look like what you imagine. Like, for example, let's say you're comic, you won an award. You're like, yes, I won. Now, what? And the other part you're not talking about is you probably had a moment in your head after we realized not many people cared. Now, what the fuck do I do? Right now, what do I do? Right? Like, you had that moment, and what you realized was, okay, I have to keep going. This was
Mm,
cool, but this isn't as high as I can go. It's not what I want,
mm,
right? And then you gotta be honest, like, what do you want out of this? And that, like, there comes a point, if creatively, you gotta make that decision. You want to make a living doing this, which means you're gonna talk to people, you're gonna talk to fans. It's gonna be some days it's gonna be a headache. You're gonna get some things done and not much done. But the point is, every day you do a little bit, and every day things will come from it. Some good, some bad, and even in the bad there'll be some good too. And if you do your job right, one day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna say, "Holy shit! I did all this cool stuff here." Right? That's how it works. Sometimes you'll look back and you'll be like, "Oh my god, I did all this really cool shit. Who the fuck knew?" Right?
mm,
And it's not because it's so easy to get lost in that process, and or in the middle of it, you don't always get the chance to enjoy it.
yeah.
And right, so it
Mm,
sounds like it was good you got that award early, because hopefully you and your imposter had a real important sit down and conversation, and you have your imposter in the place it needs to be, and you're ready to go, okay, I did good. Now I'm ready to succeed even more. Then
mm,
more success comes, you'll be like, yes, okay, I want to succeed even more. And it's no longer, you give yourself like a second to enjoy it, and then you just keep going, because what
mm.
happens there is it's now part of the process. That way the lows don't hit you quite as hard, and right, the lows don't hit you as hard. You're going to get rejections. They're part of the game. But the highs, when they come, you can take a minute and enjoy them, and then it's like, okay, I want more highs. I gotta get back to doing what got me here. Does that all make sense? What I'm saying there?
Yeah, so I have two segues. I have one segue is like to complete what we said. The other one is I will do a shameless self promotion and talk about my comic. So while you was talking, I remember. So you are well versed in fantasy. So I'm sure you must be familiar with the name of Terry Pratchett, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Love Pratchett.
So Terry Pratchett on the slip of a keyboard said that, okay, so writing. So everybody wants the key to write well. Everybody wants the key to success when it comes to writing. But writing is like boxing. And it's like you have every day you have to show up. You have to practice. You have to eat well. If you do
Right.
what you can, but that's it. It's just you show up every day and see what happens. And this is actually because I flashback to October or September, oh, no, summer 2020. It's right after the coronavirus. We finished the first chapter of what would be Dreamland's Lives and Epics, the comic that I'm doing right now, and we're looking for a title, and we're going through every little bit of a story of the story, and we realized something. We realized that, okay, so lives and epics, because it's a comic book about stories, the effect they have on people, and how they change lives. And as a medium of magic in the world of dreamless, because this is when it locks all together. Because an epic is an epic is a very, it's a very heroic, very grand representation of certain deeds. You don't get what Hercules did in his everyday life. You get the 12 labors of Hercules, right?
Yeah.
No one cares. No one cares if he was if he had a stomach ache, if he had a fallout, if he had insecurity. if he was dealing with rejection. No one cares. But this no one cares about his friends. They care about Hercules. But the thing is, like, if you put all this together, these are the little details that made him who he is. So and these little details do make our lives. So this is when it will happen. It's like, okay, so we will take all the minute and tiny details you can have in lives when they collect the story, and they will create an epic, and that epic will be glorious, if I may say. Glorious for us, at least, glorious for the reader, glorious for the hero. But it would take all the little details. It would take to do the work in every sense of the way to actually go through it. And when they have all through many things small, comes one larger thing. So all the lives together do create an epic, because you cannot have a heroic epic without the tiny details of a life.
So a proverb, an old proverb: a journey to 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And hold on a second, are you with me? There you go.
Yeah.
Your internet, I know it's a long distance connection, so sometimes you go in and out a little bit. It's not your fault. It's the fact that we are thousands of miles apart. But so I'll ask every so often. What I was going to say is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But the rest of that is, it's all, very rarely do you do giant leaps. There are moments in the journey where it feels like you do giant leaps. But the truth is, it's all the steps along the way that prepared you for those leaps when they do finally show up. So I think the hardest thing about doing this, honestly, and this is going to sound incredibly like cliche, is not to give up.
Yeah. It is the hardest part, and I think it's the most cliche thing of all. You just have to.
It's my third rule. My first rule is show up. The second rule is do your shit. And the third rule is don't quit. It's the cliche.
What's the fourth rule?
Do you want to hear them all? I have 10 rules. Would you like to hear them?
Yes, please.
Rule 1. I'm going to swear, by the way, so just in some places. Rule 1, show up. When I was a kid, I didn't understand how much this one breaks so many people. I did not realize it. Showing up. Rule 2, do your shit. They both seem so simple, but these are the biggest 2 reasons why people fail. They don't show up to do their shit. That's just what it is. Rule 3, don't quit. Rule 4, the rest is rain. So here's the thing. This is something I said earlier. You can't control where your success leads you. And that's not actually what your job is. Your job is, so say you know it's going to rain outside, but you don't know if it's going to rain on your property. Let's say you got a garden, right? But what you can do is you can get your garden as ready as possible to get in as much water as it can while it's there. That's all you can do. That's the paradox of success, because you can do everything right. Did you ever watch? There's one of my favorite quotes from Star Trek from Captain Picard Data. He goes, "Mr. Data, it is possible to do everything correctly and still lose." That's that rule. The rest is rain. You can't control necessarily the result. All you can do is prepare for the result as best you can. Rule 5, get out of your fucking way. Right? Just, there are things we do well, and there are things we all struggle with. Understand what your struggles are, and try to avoid temptation slash minimize temptation. Rule 6, be grateful, be charitable. Rule 7, no excuses. No one gives a shit why you didn't do something. At the end of the day, all they care about is, did you do it or didn't you? Rule 8, stay uncomfortable. Rule 9, detach from all outcomes. This one's not quite the same as rule 4. Detach from all. We all have ideas of how we think the world works. But every once in a while, the world's going to point out, you know that idea you got? Well, it's wrong. And if you are attached to your idea, you'll cling to it when you should let it go. So if you can detach from the outcome of anything you do, it's easier to pivot, which leads to rule 10. When in doubt, when you don't know what to do, have fun. What do you think?
Oh yeah, So here's the thing. There's like I said, Asterix is a very important, um, was an important part of my childhood. It's important. It's a major influence on how I create comic. There's a very famous. Um, no, it's not famous. There is a somewhat known, if I may say, comic strip by Albert Uderzo and René Goscinny, the creators of Asterix, describing the creative process. And that's basically their creative process was to be in a cafe in Paris, and they start getting drinks, and they look miserable because they have no idea. And the drinks start, and the drinks and the dishes start to pile up as they order more, but they still have no idea. And then in the third panel, something clicks, and it's like, okay, so and you have like, I have an idea, and it's like, and they don't use words, it's just use like expression noises, and it's like, and they start laughing, and they start enjoying so much that they have to call an ambulance to get them away. And I think that's it. That's how I want that's how I want the creative process to be, if possible. It's like, I don't think it's easy, but nine out of 10 times I'm not sure what I'm doing. I draw I draw to some references, and I read a lot to help me understand how to write, how to communicate. But it's this passion, it's this joy, because it's joy. It's for me, writing is joy. It's this joy that keeps me going. And I really don't want to sound presumptuous, but it's really, it can be so fulfilling, like doing this thing for me. And this is why I seek it out.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense, dude. It's like
Yeah.
it's a high when you see
Mm.
your idea get to the page, even if it's not perfect. It's like, wow, I made this. I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not entirely sure if you made it or it made you, or that the creative process can be a weird journey in of itself. But but um, you can have a boatload of fun. If you can make it fun for you, you'll make it fun for somebody that reads it as
Mm.
well, right? Right, and that's the thing. Like a lot of us try to focus on writing the epic story, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I think there is definitely like again, I'm a big fantasy guy. So Brandon Sanderson, I love Brandon Sanderson. Fonda Lee, I love Fonda Lee. I like
Mm.
some of the big names in fantasy, but I love Terry Pratchett. And the reason why I love Terry Pratchett is he has fun with everything he did. He had fun, and every once in a while he would say something incredibly profound.
Yeah.
And I think in the process of him having fun, you could forget that that was one of the cleverest creatives that's ever walked the planet, and you forgot that. But he didn't care that you forgot that. What he cared about is, okay, listen, I'm going to make Death the most obnoxiously fun character I possibly can,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to have fun with that, and you're going to have fun with that because I did. I'm going to make the Night Watch like the craziest, funnest group of people you've ever seen. I'm going to make the most miserable city in the world because we've all lived there,
Mm.
right? I'm going to have an old woman. I'm going to have an old woman who's a badass because no one does that, and he did it, right? Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he
No.
had, and every concept I just mentioned there is something he genuinely enjoyed creating. And that's why his work resonates to a lot of people that have read his stuff. That's why it works. You don't always need to be, heck, even Dr. Seuss. I mentioned Dr. Seuss.
Mm.
His shit's still fun. I did a panel. I used to do a panel at a writing conference where I would get writers to read Dr. Seuss. You have not lived until you've seen a Cat in a Hat operatic sequence. You
Mm.
haven't lived until you heard Fox and Socks in a Valley Girl voice. That is just hilarious, and you get to watch people play, and that's the magic of art. It's one of the biggest magics of art on the world. Is there is not a soul alive that doesn't want to play, not
Yeah.
one. Give them permission to play, and people will, and it's an amazing valuable lesson. If you can keep that joy with you in your journey, you will always be the life of the party, no matter where you go.
So I will backtrack to my to what I do to make them to give you an example. So humor is important. It has to be there. It hasn't. There's no need for debauchery, but it has to be there for like to make to for me to make something complete. And so I'm always the pun guy. Okay, whenever I don't know what
I
to
won't
do,
hold it against you.
yeah, I go to puns. Okay, and even with like one of our characters, his name is Pupan, which is the Greek phrase for where are they going, because when we created them, we had no idea what the end of the journey would be for them, so we stuck for it. And it's a clever inside joke, but yeah. But there's a very specific page. Okay, so to give you a concept of why, and why, like you said, it has resonated with many people. So I will give an example of Dreamland. So in Dreamlands 1, there is it's a dead world. There's only one human left, and all the stories of a dead world left behind. And he starts collecting these stories, and he starts to create the world's ultimate book until something happens. But you have to realize that this is a man, this is a human who deals with such with major survival skill, who doesn't understand why he's alive. So he tries to how to do anything for his life to make sense. And so I decided, okay, so this is going to be a grim book. This is going to be like a dark fantasy, as real as it gets, because when I was writing, I wasn't in the best state of mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And it reflects. But I want one joke. I want a certain joke that will just it cannot just be, because he's human. It cannot just be dark and moody all the time. That's not how anyone works. So there is so I say that, okay, I will make only one joke, but I will try to stick it as best as I can. And here's what happens. There's this so the character whose main name is Pranathoris, it's a Greek name, don't try to pronounce it, please. So he puts together, like, he gathers a set of bones, and he sits around, like it's like an open mic, and he starts describing his stories. And earlier he was carrying the skeleton of a dragon to bury it, and his back pops because he's getting older. So he's like, okay, so after all, I had the bone to pick with her. And this is, to this day, my favorite page of the comic, because it's such a silly joke, but still it has something. It has something of pure fun in it. It's not, and I still I laugh because you can see me laughing as I describe. There's nothing. I don't think it's a clever joke. I don't think it's a good joke, to be perfectly honest. But it's so much fun that people still come up to me thinking, okay, this is one of my favorite pages. Okay, to be fair, the best page in the book, because I have to say it, or the artist will kill me. It's a double page spread he has made, which is completely mind blowing. But second favorite page, the one with the joke.
So, because but it's also the context of the story you've told it in too. Like okay, so I'm working on 2 books right now, right? I did Alice in Wonderland and Greek mythology, and I mashed them up together. I made Alice and Pandora the same person, right?
Oh,
So
nice.
the Cheshire Cat's actually, when she opened Pandora's box, the Cheshire Cat went inside her head. And so they have a back and forth all the time. Sometimes he picks on her, sometimes, like, they have an actual, so even in this dark, weird Greek wonderland, right? There's jokes. There's little jokes between her and her shadow, for all intents and purposes, which just so it gets dark, but it's also funny. In my other novel, I opened, so I don't know if this exists in Greece, but so I lived in Vancouver. Sometimes you'd go to this nondescript looking place, and you'd open it up, and you would find like a bar, in the mid, like you don't have to see any signs, anything that indicates it's there. Suddenly you open up and there's like these like bars or clubs or these hidden really cool places, right? So I came up with a hidden cool place that the roof is caving in little by little. So while you're actually eating, the roof is starting to fall in. So there's like an actual like when people would fall in. It's dark humor, right? But the thing is, right, in a dark world, any kind of dark world, if you can look at something and laugh, even if it's a terrible pun talking to a dragon bone or whatever the case may be, it's rebellion. And people dig that kind of rebellion because it's real. If I can look at the world and laugh, it's not all bad. Right. So, and that's, I think there's something very universal. And that's why a sense of humor is one of the most important things we all have, because a sense of humor helps us deal with the crazy, insane, batshit world we live in. Right. Because the world, let's be honest, it doesn't matter where you are. The world's nuts, and we all know it. Most of us are just trying to like carve our little space in it, and hopefully no one bothers us, right? Hopefully that's not always how it works out, but that does tend to happen from time to time. So that humor gives a little light in the darkness, and that is no matter how dark the story is, if there's a little joy, it feels that much realer because it's the little things we appreciate, not necessarily. I would love the big house, car, mansion, crazy army of women after me, all that stuff, the quote unquote rock star lifestyle. But the truth is, I'm probably happy just with the simplest little things, because that's all we really need to be happy in a world.
It's it's just so human in this sense. It's like you said, because it's not the best example, but I decided from early on that okay, so what kind of comedy do I like? So I used to watch a lot of British sitcoms, not sitcoms, and it was just they had this dry, dark, not gritty, but there was like, okay, so yeah, things are bad, but you have to be like, there is something fun in every situation out there, and
Sure.
like, yeah. And like you said, growing up, I was getting bullied a lot, and I was getting beaten up a lot, and jokes is like, jokes is how I handled it. Like it's just that's how it went. And I wouldn't make fun of the others, but I definitely make fun of the situation. Because and I remember when I watched the first time the Mean Girls with the whole food chain analogies. Yeah, I remember that I had also made like certain, no, not on that, but like certain situations of how high school and middle school is like this, and you always have to keep on your toes because predators are like all around the corner. Yeah, comedy just helps you get through so much.
Yeah, comedy helps you slay the dragon until one day you become the dragon yourself. But that's that's somewhere that's further along the journey. Like eventually you come to the point when you realize, like, you're 27. So, but if you haven't hit that point yet, you will very shortly. You're going to be like, you know what? I don't have to put up with this bullshit quite as much as I've been putting up with it. What can I get away with? And then you get to my age, then you just don't care at all. And then you're like, okay, now I like Thanos, I'm not gonna lie, in like 5 years I might be like this crazy ass supervillain in some ways because I just won't care about certain things. And you're laughing at me. It's like, yeah, okay. But but the thing is, humor teaches us how absurd life is. And right,
Yeah.
it could be right, it's absurd in a lot of ways. And that's its power. It's also subjective. But I learned a secret to humor. Let's see if you agree with me. So my favorite writer on humor was a guy by the name of Peter David. Have you heard of him?
It's too common. Can you reference like a work of?
So he used to write Spider-Man for Marvel Comics a lot.
Okay.
He's most well known for his Hulk run, but for me it was Spider-Man that taught me humor. because Peter David's one of those few writers that could be very serious and very funny in the same book. Like he could do both at the same time sometimes.
Okay.
So Spider-Man. I realized the secret to Spider-Man's humor when you make Spider-Man funny, and it sounds really, really terrible. You tell bad jokes on purpose.
Oh yeah.
Because what I realized was it's like comedy is like a roller coaster. So you go up, 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 up. You take them on the ride. You tell the joke. They come down. Wee. But if you make the same quality of joke every single time, eventually the audience are going to be like, yeah, okay, that was good. That was good. But if you go, okay, I'm going to tell this really good joke. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to tell this really, really terrible pun. Oh, you can't see the crowd groan. Then you tell another like good joke, and then another good joke, and then you tell another really bad joke. You dirty up your jokes a little bit. What happens is the humor becomes jagged. And when it becomes jagged, it's actually easier to get the audience into your jokes. And then eventually jokes are like, it doesn't matter what you say eventually. What eventually happens is if the book is entertaining enough, right? The momentum of all the jokes you did carries you all the way through. You can tell incredibly crappy shit at the end if you want to. I'm not saying you should, but you could, and they would still laugh with you because you got them laughing the whole way through. And once you create that tone and world, and even Pratchett, like we mentioned, Terry Pratchett, some of his stuff was terrible. Right? Some of his jokes were terrible, but some of them were hilarious. And he mixed them in such a wonderful way that eventually you just went along for the ride. And I think that's what good comedy does. That's why it's so freaking hard to write.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, there's whole comedy is like so unforgiving because you have to try, and you have to fail. You have to like go like you said, you have to try and you have to like put some effort in it and see, like, for example, I cannot for the life of me come up with a New Yorker cartoon captions like that's not me, and I will try. That's the trick, but I will actually try to come up, but there's no way I will. I know which parts of comedy I'm sufficient. I'm not gonna say good at. I'm sufficient, but I still have to go out and try to get a better grasp of comedy. And it's the same with so here's one of the so I'm doing a comic book, okay, and the concept of this comic book is called Hell Divers, and the concept of this comic book is that by the end of the book the two characters have to die. Like that's the rule. The two characters have to die by the end of the book, the story, sorry, because it's think of it like cartoon style, 10 page per story, and you have to, and this is the trick, but you have to find a way how it will come, because you cannot, sometimes it's just like so abrupt that a drop pod hits them, like classic sci-fi, it just falls from the sky, annihilates them. But others, it's just, you just have to find it in a way that it feels this this comedic sense, and it can be so crappy sometimes, but others is just when it clicks, that okay, yes, all the jokes were bad in the book, but the way they die, this is the punchline.
Okay. So what I would do? Like I would be doing something deliberately self-aware. Like I would live like, okay, you suck at the New York caption. So I'd have my audience in the background just like groaning. It's like, fuck, here he goes again. Right. Just actually just expecting a bad performance. Like teach the audience right away, this is going to be terrible. And then you start terrible. Right. And then you do something completely unexpected to make it actually interesting, right? Like knowing, again, it's understanding what the audience, what you expect to some degree from you, but also what the audience expects.
Oh yeah.
And to some degree, messing with those expectations. I mean, that's what storytellers do at the end of the day. We're not telling a new story exactly. We're telling a story that's been told in our way, and that's different, right? So it's understanding then at that point I'm doing an Alice in Greek mythological story. So that means that Alice is caught in a dream. So the expectation is she's going to wake up. So where I'm playing with the audience and seriously is, will she wake up? Right? Will she? Will she want to wake up? Right? Right. And that's a different expectation. I'm still playing with what you expect, but I'm twisting it in a unique way. And you're doing the same thing with your stories. Comedy is the same way. Comedy, joy, drama, it's all the same. In this one sense, it's the same. You have to figure out what the expectations of what's the audience going to expect, and where do I want to take them.
Yeah, it's because you have to. It's I think so. Like you said, personal perspective. It shifts everything because all of a sudden, because the way it's a cliche metaphor, but I'm always thinking of prism. You have this storytelling idea that's a blank ray of light, that's a white ray of light, and it hits you, and you're the prism, and you basically choose the color that the light is refracted. It can be a rainbow, it can be it can focus on more color, on certain colors, or others, but you are the prism. The ideas are there, you just have to maneuver it, you just have to shift the narrative and how you present it.
It's right. And you have to the clarity of kind of where you want to go. As I've gotten older / wiser with a question mark, because I don't know. The older I get, the more I realize that my answer to life is, I don't know. This is like right? That seems to be the more rational answer as I get older.
It is what it is. It is what this is. This is the motto. It is what it is.
Yeah. That's a very Mediterranean. Like my family's Maltese. It's a very Mediterranean. This is what it is. We're just here. But one of the things I've learned is it's like the biggest thing I've learned in this journey of when I tell stories is, where do I want to take them, and what is the image / feeling I want to leave the audience with? Because if I make them feel something, they'll come back.
It's and that's tricky, especially in comics, because comics have a bad rep. It's and because sometimes they tend to like draw out series and they just get tiring and you lose interest and you lose focus because you have so many series running at the same time. And it's like for us in Loudmouth, it was, though the concept was to create self-standing books. Okay, they are definitely part of something else, but you do get something at the end. You do get a beginning, middle, and end. You have to imagine two concentric circles. There is a larger story moving, and that's the issue. Is this part of the circle, but at the same time, you have the character moving, both literally and figuratively.
Well, that's why like superheroes are such a hit and miss thing, because superheroes have an act 1. They sometimes have an act 2. They almost never have an act 3, because if there's an act 3, the story's over, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and this is just the business aspect of comics. Let's say, for example, you sell 1 million books of what you currently have, and everybody wants more. But let's say you only have 4 issues. You'd be like, well, shit, this is great. Is there a way I can make it go 6 issues? And again, from a making a living point of view, people can understand that, right? Yeah. But at some point, the story dilutes, right? And when it dilutes, that's when you lose people. And it's a really tricky balance, especially in comics, because comics, at least I can't speak for Europe, but for North America, a lot of comic creators have never done an act 1, act 2, act 3 story because in comics, Superman never gets a happy ending. Batman never gets a happy ending. Spider-Man never gets a happy ending. You just tell your story and then somebody else comes and keeps writing the story. So it's not an act 1, act 2, act 3 thing. It's act 1, maybe act 1.5, act 2, and then somebody else does an act 1 all over again.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. It has to end. I'm sorry, but it has to reach a point. Even if you don't like, even if you want to leave it open ended. Because I remember growing up, one of my favorite mangas, it just had an open ended ending, and it's like, okay, so we start the journey anew, but the journey so far, it's over. This chapter,
Yeah.
okay, I will leave you wanting more. It goes out on a hype, but it's over. It cannot continue because it would not verify, but like I said, it would dilute the message of this that we had so far.
Yeah. My favorite manga of all time is Full Metal Alchemist. I love that. I love that book. That book is fantastic.
Yep.
Amazing act 1, awesome act 2, and act 3 is like super clever. And that's like, I think North America is where that reputation with comics comes from. But even in North America, there are great stories. Like there's Why the Last Man, there's Planetary, there's Watchmen, there's these books that have, or my personal favorite, I think, of all of that era is Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Yeah.
Right? It has a wonderful ending. And although I say this, I like Neil Gaiman, I don't love him because I read Ray Bradbury first, right? It kind of, I think so. But it doesn't deny that he told Sandman is an amazing achievement from beginning to end, and I think comics in North America don't get enough of that. I can't speak for Europe because again, I don't read enough of Europe stuff to say, but again, it's from a franchise, like the business end of things. I understand wanting to keep the story going. I do. It's something I respect. If you can suddenly pay your bills with a story, you're going to do everything you can to expand it wherever you can make it go. And I think this has to be stated here. This is why sometimes you see decisions that are made. That said, sometimes it's good to walk away while people still love it, because the beautiful thing is these books will always be for sale. And if it's a really good book, people will find it.
It's no, especially with, because I remember reading. I'm not sure which Neil Gaiman's first novel was for me. I'm not really sure. Could have been Sandman. I'm not, because it's because like for me, it could have been Good Omens. I'm not sure.
Okay, Good Omens is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has this kind of end. It's like it's done. Okay, the Damien goes on with the Hellhound, and they have a very nice ending, and it leaves you like with a beautiful image of him walking out. But the story that Neil and Mr. Gaiman and Pratchett want to say, it's done. Oof, yeah, apologies. But yeah, with Sandman, it just keeps hitting home runs every time. I mean, I like it so much.
Because it's sorry.
No.
Sorry, it's a story about stories. That's why Sandman rings so well with especially writers. I love the fact that he did Midsummer's Night's Dream is still one of my favorite stories ever. It's so good.
That one, the Dream of a Thousand Cats. like it was masterful in every sense, and always the storytelling too. It was just such a major influence writing Dreamlands, Sandman. It- I'm guessing you can see it. Dreamland, Sandman being the influence for Dreamlands,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's sorry, you were saying.
No, I'm just nodding. Sorry. I'm with you.
No, there was what else? Because I even like the Batman ones. Also Grant Morrison is a master of this, especially like Act 3. We get that it's All Star Superman. Sorry, it's All Star Superman, and that closure feeling that okay,
And
it's
folks, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, just real quick. All Star Superman is required reading if you're a Superman fan. All right, continue. Yeah.
that's it. It just they need to come to an end or or reach a full stop, which is that's it. It's a full stop for a story. Maybe someone will pick it up, but it has to. The impact in the stories lies in that sense. Because I remember. So I'm more of a comics fan. Stelios, the artist from Loudmouth, who is more of a manga and anime fan. And this is okay. So we want to create better comics, so we will start watching better manga, watching better anime, reading better manga, and he suggests Gurren Lagann, and he just sorry, have you watched? Yeah, I'm guessing from your explanation, and it's so impactful because everything has a meaning. It's not done. I'm stuck again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I'm listening to you. I'm just, yeah, because there's, like that's the thing. Like when here's the thing. We all know what the good stories are. We've mentioned a few authors here: Terry Pratchett, Gaiman. Um, I want to say Akira. I can't remember her last name. Who created Fullmetal Alchemist? She's amazing. Gurren Lagann. I'm a sucker for fairy tale. That's kind of like one of my two fun, I call quote unquote fun ones. The other one I love is Spy X Family because it's so silly. And I'm right now, again, as you can tell at this point in my life, Thanos, I'm a very, very serious, quote unquote, serious individual. And I enjoy my silly stuff very, very much at this point in my life. What I've learned in this life is we recognize good very early. We don't always understand why until we actually start putting it together. When I started collecting comics, I loved superhero stuff. Now that I'm older / wiser, believe it up to the universe, now I'm looking for just good stories. Right? I'm not looking for the latest superhero fix. The closest I get to that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Right, that's the closest thing. That's because I'm still secretly 12. Right, I'm still secretly 12. But for most of my books are like Saga or Starhenge or Hexware right now with Tim Seeley, like stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end, because you can create the most. Because I'm looking for the most impact. Right, the most impact. I'm not looking anymore for. I want characters I can really invest in. And the problem with Spider-Man is Spider-Man's always going to be Peter Parker. He's always going to be single / almost married to Mary Jane. He's never going to. Where he's at right now is where Marvel wants him to be. And I understand that. Again, business-wise, I get it. But someone who enjoys story, right? Someone who enjoys a story, I want a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I want to laugh. I want to cry. I want to feel. And I want to be sad it's over. But I want to be, to quote Dr. Seuss, I want to be sad it's over, but I want to be happy it happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it just makes so much sense. It's so simple, it's complicated, and it's complicated that's so simple.
I'm going to wrap this conversation up by talking about one of my all-time favorite video games, because that person was a genius. You ever play Tetris?
Yeah.
Simplest fucking game in the world, right? It's such a simple game, right? The guy that came up with it is a genius because he could see it, right? He saw it when nobody else did. And years and years and years later, people still play Tetris. All these years later, right? When I was a kid, man, it was almost a cool thing, almost. Now it's just a classic, right? So, Mr. Thanos, I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
I think it was a wonderful to start my Sunday and to finish your Saturday.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to meet you, right? And maybe someday, if I'm cool enough, I'll get to meet you in person somewhere, somehow, some way.
I really hope we meet and have a conversation face to face without any weird glitching, so we can see all my weird glitching from up close. Sometimes we'll go like loading screen.
It's okay. Listen. As long as you don't get one of those error 404s on your face, we'll be good. But you have a Kickstarter going on right now. So where can people find it?
So if they go on Kickstarter and they just write my name, which conveniently my name sounds exactly like the villain.
That's right.
From Avengers, so it's Thanos Kyratzis. You can find the Kickstarter, but even easier if you search for Dreamlands Lives and Epics, you will get two options. The first chapter has been funded, and there's 1 week left for the second one until March 5th. I really hope. I don't hope it's June 5th. Yeah.
There you go, folks.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Is there a webpage people can find you at?
Oh yeah. So if you want, they can just Google Loudmouse Crew as Loudmouse Crew GR. It's the official webpage of the studio, and on social media you can find all of our handles. This is the same handle we use, and there are just so many things that we do. Because we have a webcomic that we publish weekly. We do update and start working with more artists to create more comics. And I don't want to sound overly ambitious, but we're really hoping that this year we will be publishing 2 to 3 graphic novels.
Dude, I wish you the best. I'm trying to publish my first one. It's a process, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, dude, it is possible. Like once you get rolling, like the one thing I've learned in this life is once you get rolling, it's like a water wheel. It just comes to you when you need it to come to you. And it's a weird. A lot of people don't. As absurd as this world is, folks, it is magical in a lot of ways. And if you want to make something happen, it works out. So my friend, for those watching, those listening, this is our Kickstarter right now. Dreamlands Lives and Epics. It's issue 2. It has giant dwarves and dragons. It even says so in the description. So you can definitely go check it out right now. And you can do this. I will make sure this is up a little early on the audio so that more people can hear it out there. And before I go, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my advertising service. I make audio, video, words, and pictures featuring prior projects and yourself. And you can definitely come check me out there if you want to do that. Beyond all that, folks, that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. So I'm off tomorrow, but Monday I have a double header. I have 2 comic creators coming in. The first one, Matt Knowles and Steph Kennan are coming back to talk about their Kickstarter project. And in the evening, I'm playing an epic game of Commander against John Westhoff. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So for everybody, because after all, on a podcast like this, if you can't play Magic, what can't you do, right? But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time.